Step 14. On the boisterous yet evil Lord, the belly. We have been struggling with ourselves in everything which we have discussed, and this is particularly so when we speak about the belly. For I doubt if anyone can free themselves of this Lord before resting in their tomb. Gluttony is the belly's hypocrisy, because when it is gorged, it protests of scarcity, and when it is full and close to bursting, it complains that it is hungry. Gluttony is the master of garnishes, the origin of tasty dishes. You plug one spurt, and it appears somewhere else. You plug that, and another one appears. Gluttony is an illusion of the eyes, which takes in moderation but desires to consume everything immediately. Being gorged with food is the father of sexual immorality, but death of the belly is the instrument of chastity. The one who plays with a lion many times tames it, but the one who cherishes the body will make it ever more reckless. The Jew delights on Sabbath days, and at feasts, and a gluttonous monk rejoices on Saturdays and Sundays. He counts down the days until Easter, and he readies his food many days beforehand. The servant of his stomach carefully plans out what foods he will rejoice in at the feast, but the servant of God meditates on the graces he will be honored with. When a stranger visits, the servant of the belly is full of love, on account of gluttony alone, and he thinks that laxness for himself is purely for the comfort of his brother. When there are others present, he supposes it is permissible for him to consume wine, and considering it best to hide his virtue, he ends up a slave of the passion. Many times pride opposes gluttony, and they argue with each other for the miserable monk as if for an acquired slave. The one will encourage him to take it easy, while the other suggests that he should let his virtue be victorious. The discerning monk will reject both, at the proper time removing each passion with the other. So long as the body is carnal, let us be moderate at all times, in all places. When it has been mollified, which I think it is impossible for the living, then we should hide our achievement. I have observed old priests, beguiled by demons, on feast days allowing young men who were not their disciples to partake of wine and everything else. If those who make such allowances are well attested in the Lord, that is, they are spiritual, then may we also allow ourselves their liberties. However, if they are careless, let us give no consideration to their permission, particularly when we are caught up in the heat of the battle with our carnal nature. When Evagrius was afflicted by an evil spirit, he imagined that he was the wisest of monks both in mind and deed. However, the miserable man was misled, and because the most idiotic man in many regards. For he said, "When we long for a variety of foods, then restrict it to bread and water." To give this instruction is like telling a child, ascend the full ladder in one step. And so, discarding this rule, let us say, when we long for a variety of foods, it is better to ask what is appropriate for the body's nature. So let us also use trickery when struggling with our crooked enemy. And barring a particularly hard conflict, let us first restrict our intake of fatty foods, and then from warming our food, and only after this from those things which make our food pleasant. If possible, allow your stomach to have satisfying and easily digestible food, so as to gratify its unending hunger by sufficiency, so that we be rescued from too much desire, as from a disease, by quick digestion. If we examine the issue, we will discover that many of the foods which inflame the belly also inflame the body. Mock the demon, who after your meals suggests you should eat your next meal later in the future, for tomorrow at the 9th hour he will modify the plan of the previous day. One type of moderation is proper for those whose behavior is exemplary, and another type for those who are weak. For the first, a motion of the body is an indication for the need of restraint, but the latter have such motions regularly, being afflicted by them until their death. The first desire to keep their mind at peace, and the latter entreat God by spiritual mourning and grief. Those who are perfected find their joy and comfort in possessing dispassion over all things. The ascetic warrior delights in the heat of the struggle, but the slave to the passions delights in the feast of feasts, Easter. The glutton dreams solely of food and treats, but the mind of the one who grieves dreams only of judgment and punishment. Control your belly before it controls you. Then you will be confident in your ability to keep yourself in check with the help of disgrace. Those who have fallen into this terrible hole understand what I have said, but those who are eunuchs have not encountered it. Let us cut back on our belly by the remembrance of the future fire. For there are some who were slaves of their belly, and have severed their organs, and they perished in a double death. If we investigate this subject, we will discover that it is the belly alone which is the source of all human shipwrecks. The mind of one who fasts prays solemnly, but the mind of an unrestrained person is gutted by unchaste idols. Satisfaction of the belly dries the fountain of tears, but when the belly is dry it produces these waters. He who delights in his stomach and desires to vanquish the spirit of sexual immorality is like one who attempts to extinguish a flame with oil. By being frugal with the stomach, the heart is made humble. However, by satisfying the belly, the mind becomes arrogant. Keep a guard over yourself at morning, midday, and during the hour before partaking of food, and you will understand the benefit of fasting. In the morning, the mind jumps and chases one thing after another. When the 6th hour of the day draws near, it settles down, and by the time the sun sets, it is completely calm. Limit your belly, and you will no doubt secure your mouth, because the tongue is empowered by a surfeit of food. Battle with all your strength against your belly, and hold it back solemnly. If you work a little, the Lord will quickly labor with you. Leather wineskins can hold much more liquid if they are flexible, but if they are neglected, they will not hold as much. He who overburdens his belly with food swells his innards, but the one who battles with his belly makes it smaller. When the inside has contracted, then we cannot consume as much, and in the future we will naturally become fasters. Many times thirst is overcome by thirst. However, it is difficult or impossible to overcome hunger with hunger. When the belly overtakes you, control it with work. But if this is not possible due to illness, battle against it with a vigil. If your eyes become weighty, do manual work. But if you are not sleepy, do not do manual work, because it is impossible to fill the mind with God and mammon, which is to say, God and manual work. Understand that many times a demon dwells in the belly, and does not permit a man to be satiated, even if he has consumed all Egypt and swallowed the whole river Nile. And once he has partaken of food, this defiled spirit departs, and sends instead the spirit of sexuality, describing to him our state of being, and saying, seize him, for when the belly has been filled, he will not be able to withstand you. With a smile the spirit of sexuality arrives, and having chained us up hand and foot with sleep, does with us everything he pleases, polluting the soul and body with filth, dreams, and discharges. It is astonishing to behold the spiritual mind polluted and overshadowed by the carnal lusts, and likewise the immaterial spirit cleansed and purified by clay. If you have made a vow to Christ to travel the straight and narrow path, control your belly, for by satisfying and expanding it, you are breaking your oath. Take heed, and you will hear him saying, broad and wide is the path of gluttony that leads to the ruin of fornication, and there are many who enter through it, because narrow is the gate and difficult is the path of fasting that leads to a pure life, and there are few who enter by it. The ruler of the demons is the fallen Lucifer, and the ruler of the passions is gluttony. When you sit at the table that is overloaded with food, think of the grave and judgment, because even with this you will only slightly control this passion. In tasting of your drink, always bring to mind the vinegar and gall of the Lord, and you will no doubt be either moderate, or you will groan and make your mind humble. Do not be tricked. You will not be saved from Pharaoh, and you will not behold the heavenly Passover unless you regularly consume the bitter herbs and the unleavened bread. For the bitter herbs are the constraint and toil of fasting, and the unleavened bread is the mind that is free of pride. Let it be joined to your very breath, the words of him who said, But I, when demons vexed me, clothed myself with sackcloth, and humbled my soul with fasting, and my prayer cleaved to the bosom of my soul. Fasting is a struggle against nature, and the removal of all that stimulates the palate, the inhibition of lust, the excision of evil thoughts, liberation from dreams, purity in prayer, the radiance of the soul, the defense of the mind, liberation from blindness, the gateway of remorse, humble soul, humble sorrow, joyful remorse, a break from speaking, an agent for stillness, a watch for obedience, alleviation of sleep, health of body, a means to dispassion, a clearing of sins, a door to paradise, and its joy. Let us inquire of this enemy, or indeed this prince of our missteps, this gateway of the passions, the stumbling block of Adam, this destruction of Esau, this ruin of the Israelites, this disgrace of Noah laying naked, this deliverer of Gomorrah, this rebuke of Lot, this destruction of the sons of Eli, this leader to corruption. Let us inquire from him. Where was he born? Who are his children? What defeats him? And who is able to crush him? Tell us, torturer of all humans, who has purchased everyone with the money of greed? How did you get entry to us? After you come, what do you normally generate? And what is the path of your departure? Gluttony, disturbed by these rebukes, raging in a fury against us, and frothing at the mouth, answers, Why are you, who are my subjects, overcoming me with rebukes? How is it you are attempting to put distance between us? I am chained to you by your very nature. The gateway to me is the very matter of food. The occasion of my insatiability is regular practice. The cornerstone of my vice is repeated habit, apathy of soul, and forgetting death. How do you propose discovering the names of my children? If I enumerate them, they will be more than the sand of the shore. However, I will tell you at least the names of the firstborn among my beloved children. My firstborn son is the agent of sexual immorality. After him is hardness of heart, and then drowsiness. From me comes an ocean of evil thoughts, waves of dirt, depths of impurity that are unknown and lack names. My daughters are sloth, chattiness, close association in speaking, joking, flippancy, disobeying, a hard neck, being difficult, talking back, insensibility, bondage, pride, vainglory, arrogant boasting, after which comes impure prayer, distracted thoughts, and many times sudden misfortune, which is caught up with depression, the most vile of all my daughters. The remembrance of wrongs hinders me, but does not overcome me. The remembrance of death is always against me, but there is nothing coming from men that will bring me to ruin. The one who has the Comforter abiding in him prays to him in opposition to me, and the Comforter, when entreated, does not permit me to behave passionately. But those who have not partaken of his gift without fail seek their comfort in my sweetness. The mastery over this sin is a brave one. He who is capable, let him go quickly to dispassion and to the highest level of purity.